Welcome back, Nuggets. This mother clock has got some thoughts. Let's ruffle some feathers and get into the video. And if you would like to support my baby chick of a channel, please consider liking and subscribing, and don't forget to go check out my back catalogue. Okay, my nuggets. I've got some ruffled feathers today. We are channeling sassy Vera. This is not a video that I was intending on making, and yet here we are. Here I am, just trying to make a nice, mellow Gypsy Rose video that I've written a 10,000 word script on. And this shit cluckery comes up in front of me. Now, I've been hearing about these rumors around Eugenia's passing for quite a few days, weeks now, I guess. And just as always, I've been ignoring them, and I intended to keep ignoring them because every time Eugenia goes AWOL from the internet, this sort of thing comes up. In fact, in my memory, I can think of 4 large events that have happened in the last few years that have triggered this kind of rhetoric. And that is one in 2019 when she went into treatment, one in 2022 when she left Twitch, one in 2024, I want to say, it might have been 2023, when she got age restricted on TikTok and had a hissy fit, and of course this one. And that's not even really delving into my memory banks and thinking about it super hard. So this kind of thing happens a lot. Enough that my general rule on things is to say, unless I see something come from her official channels themselves, from an official person in her life, I am not going to be taking any of these seriously. And if you're looking for a video who's going to sensationalize this and build up the hype, I am sorry you've come to the wrong place, because I will be serving a whole bunch of sassy logic your way. What? Logic on the internet? How could I? How could I? So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's check out the timeline of events, see what's been fueling this particular fire, delve into my detective work, which was very interesting. I did fall down a bit of a rabbit hole. And then we might have a good old rant about some philosophy. How does that sound? Okay, so from what I can tell, Eugenia's Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube channels are all completely stagnant since her post about Buzz. And we haven't heard from her, although we have heard that Jeffrey is claiming she is fine, but this is what Jeffrey does. So, you know, it's all very irrelevant, intangible information that cannot be verified. All we know is that her last posts were about Buzz, and her last TikTok live was on the 29th of June in her local time. So what has made this unaliving incident a little more substantial than others? Let's dig into it, because I uncovered some very interesting things. It seems to have all started with a TikTok creator under the name of Raisin Dumplings. Now, I just want to say that I am going to be taking some fairly strong opinions in this video. I think it's wonderful if you think about this critically and agree with me. I think it's wonderful if you think about this critically and disagree with me. What I do not want to see happening after this is any sort of action being taken in anyone's direction. If we could just keep the discussion nice and neatly in my comment section, don't go reaching out to anybody externally. Thank you very much. We are all very responsible nuggets here. This was the first video I could find on this topic.
Eugenia Cooney passed away. That is what I just seen on my TikTok.
Okay, so she just seen on her TikTok. I'm sorry. Look, I'm really sorry. I know I'm not normally this sassy. I had a very visceral reaction to this topic, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but I'll dial back the sassy just a scooch. So in this video, she's saying that she has just seen on her TikTok that Eugenia Cooney has passed away. But if we do a little zooming in on this, you can actually see that the image she's referencing says, "So does anyone else have the speculation that Eugenia Cooney has passed?" which is a very common kind of phrasing that we see around this time when Eugenia goes missing. So straight off the bat, we're already completely out of context and jumping to conclusions and already entering just the beginnings of spreading misinformation for views, for clout, for whatever you want to call it.
She hasn't posted since the last week of June. This is the longest she has gone without posting anything on any social media account. June 27th, to be exact, was her last post, and it was when her dog died.
So straight up here, we can also confirm that there is misinformation. June 29th was her last live stream and last interaction with the internet, and it is absolutely not the longest that she's gone without posting. Just the one that I was talking about when she got age restricted on TikTok last time was weeks. Actually, I think it might have even been months. It was a long time, a very long hiatus. So I think we need to already be approaching this individual with this kind of information with a healthy layer of skepticism. And I think that this is a very important part of dealing with the internet, especially in this day and age where you can't trust everything you read or see. You can't trust everything you hear. And everybody and their mum has an internet and a TikTok account that can just basically put out their opinions sometimes as fact very confidently. And something as well to keep in mind is I have what I would consider a basic level of skill set in Photoshop, in video editing, in audio editing, and I could, even back in the day, fairly easily create some of the quote unquote proof that we're going to see here, let alone now that we have AI that can generate photos, images, and audio. It's even more critical that we really look at things with a very careful magnifying glass before we go repeating the information. Because the reality is you don't even need to have any technical skill set anymore to put something out there. Not to say that AI has been used in this exact example, but you'll see where I'm heading with this. So this next clip is now a clip that has been deleted seemingly because I could not find it on her account. And I believe this is because now Jeffrey has spoken out, so potentially she was getting a little bit too much heat for this video being up and being so critically incorrect that it's been removed. So I actually managed to snag this little clip from Rich Lux's video that came out today. So let's have a watch.
Eugenia Cooney, I'm almost positive, actually passed away. And here's how I know.
So I'm just going to pause her there. If you listen to that language, I am almost positive that Eugenia Cooney has passed away. And here's how I know. And if you've listened to many of my videos, you'll notice that I do tend to sit kind of in a neutral zone where I speculate about maybe this, maybe that, maybe this and that, or have you considered this? But it's very, very rarely where I will make a definitive statement of this kind of nature, because the reality is that unless you're in the room with these people, you can't know. You can be sure in your mind, but you cannot know for certain that these are facts. So let's let her continue.
This person came into my comments. She's a neighbor of her, and you can read what she wrote.
And if you can just remember how she phrased that right there, just store that in your heads just for a moment. This person came into my comments, and you can read what she wrote, which really sounds like this is somebody that came directly into this woman's comments and said this directly to this woman. And so this was the screenshot that I found floating around on the internet as well, and it is the full thing that she is addressing here. Somebody called Trixie said she passed away last Saturday night. Somebody asked, how do you know that? And Trixie responded with, I live around the block from her. Last Saturday at around 11 p.m. Ambulance was outside. I was walking my dog at 11 p.m. Go Queen. All right. Sorry, I just realized that. I was walking my dog and saw an ambulance bringing a body out in a body bag. Now, we have no way of verifying this person in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't matter what passing incident we're talking about, what year, when it's happened, there always seems to be a neighbor or a nurse or a friend or a family member who totally comes up, validates these concerns, but they're never verifiable. And just like this person, it's just some rando on the internet, and that's all it boils down to. That's all we can take it as.
Then there's this article. You can read that. Now there is another article. You can read that. So yeah, I really hope not. I hope she's in treatment, but it's not looking good.
Okay, so the first article she referenced there looks to be a news site, and I'll get into that just in a moment. The second quote unquote article was actually a meta AI search. Now, the problem with AI is that it can absolutely hallucinate. And what do I mean by that? If you haven't had a lot of exposure to AI, based on the way their learning models are structured or the way that they gather information on the internet, it can kind of cause them to connect dots that shouldn't be connected. And because they're AI and not human beings that have lived in the world for a while operating on the internet, they don't have the ability necessarily yet to be able to differentiate what dots should be connected and what ones shouldn't. And in particular, when you're talking about things like meta AI or like the Google AI answers that come up at the top of a Google search, they are collating all of the information that they're searching for on the internet and trying to pose the most likely or most common answer that they are presented with. And as you can imagine, when we're talking about somebody like Eugenia, who has a lot of speculation around her at all times, this can kind of get a little bit skewy. And so this is what we're talking about here. And I'll read it out for my nuggets who are doing housework at the moment. Yes, I know you're there. You keep cleaning, I'll read for you. So this looks like it was put into potentially like Instagram or something like that. And when you searched her name, this is what had come up. Eugenia Cooney was a beloved YouTube star and advocate for individuality, known for her unique gothic fashion and authenticity. Because just as a side note, we all know that Eugenia is known for her authenticity. I'll continue on. Tragically, Eugenia passed away on July 12, 2025 at the age of 30. Her unaliving was attributed to acute multi-organ dysfunction, with her family stating that she had been under specialized care for long-standing health conditions. Eugenia's online presence began in 2011, and she gained a massive following across YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. Her content focused on fashion, beauty, and mental health, with many fans appreciating her openness about her struggles with EDs. Just a side note, we know she's been very, very open in her time on the internet about EDs. Yes, I will continue. Despite facing criticism and concerns about her health, Eugenia remained a prominent figure in the online community until her passing. Her legacy continues to inspire fans to practice compassion, support mental health awareness, and celebrate individuality. When it comes to perspective and intent, imagine that there are two people standing on a footpath looking down at something that's been written on the footpath. Person A sees the number 6 and argues that this is a 6 that has been drawn on the ground. Person B, standing opposite them looking down, says, no, that's clearly a 9. This is a 9. And these two people, person A and B, argue vehemently that they are correct because what they see is definitively what they see. But the reality is, it could be more than just a 6 or a 9. They are both right and they are both wrong. It could be a lowercase g, for example, or it could be that the person that actually drew the image on the ground, accidentally stumbled and just drew a squiggle and it's nothing at all. And that's the intent behind the perspective, right? So, in the sense of AI doing this, there's no actual intent behind it. There's no malice. There's nothing like that. So that means that it is the squiggle. It is the randomness that has come together of those connecting of the dots, if that makes sense. So just another example of how this can happen, and it's a fairly benign version of it, but I was searching for obvious reasons, can chickens have pumpkin? This wasn't Meta AI, but the Google AI answers came up saying chickens should avoid pumpkins. And I thought, oh, gee, that sounds serious because I know that chickens can have pumpkin seeds. So I was curious about like the actual pumpkin. When you clicked on the source that it had referenced, it was actually an article on keeping chickens in with your crops. So the article was actually describing that if you're growing pumpkins, you should be able to let your chickens in there and they should leave the pumpkins alone. So therefore your crop is safe. And this is why we still need to fact check AI when we're researching and things like that. It's just like a misfiring of neurons in a sense and a connecting of dots that should not have been connected. So I was actually curious about this as well, and I just wanted to start doing a little bit of detective work, and I wanted to see what would come up in Google because this is going to be operating separately to Meta AI. And I put in Eugenia Cooney passes Greenwich. And lo and behold, the AI answer came up affirming with a different date and basically repeating the information that had already been found. Now, the reason that this was repeating this information is because the very first source that comes up there is actually the same article that Raisin Dumplings had referenced. So when I clicked on it, it came up to what looks like a local news site. But straight off the bat, something kind of felt a little bit off with this site. And look, I can't definitively confirm whether this is real or fake, but I will show you what I observed on this site. And the very, very first thing that I noticed when I scrolled all the way to the bottom was the comments section. It's completely empty. And if there is functionality to have a comment section, do we think that something like this about somebody like Eugenia would have no comments at all? So that immediately kind of rung alarm bells. So I had a little play around and I also noticed that a lot of the links on this particular page are not working. They're actually not links at all. They just look like links. Some of the videos go to actual videos, but most of them are nothing. And then I saw at the bottom here, I'll do a little zoom in for you. There is text saying custom footer text left, custom footer text right. And when I scrolled all the way to the top, sample page. So this looks like a free WordPress kind of site that can be created relatively quickly. And that makes me feel like this is not an authentic page. But it does absolutely seem to be the one that the AI is finding. Now, interestingly enough, if we go back to that initial search that I did in Google, you can see that there are a handful of sources listed there. Most of these are now down. So they've been taken down. I don't know what they did say, but since the AI is using them as source material, I'm guessing that they were probably repeating what was said in the county local news. And then if you click on more of them, some of the sources are now talking about that we know it's a hoax, and some of them are talking about scares that had happened in years past. So now I'm not really one for conspiracy theories, but the fact that this looks like a fake news site and just a free quick thing that was put up, and the fact that several of the other sources have now been taken down, this almost looks like some sort of really elaborate hoax to try and trick AI into picking up the wrong information. This whole thing right here is not at all credible in any way, shape, or form, and I consider this debunked. So when I said, please remember how she said that somebody had come into her comments and posted the information.
This person came into my comments, and you can read what she wrote.
It seems like other people may have been a little skeptical as well and kind of questioning this. And I found this post.
And when I said somebody came into my comments and posted this, I meant somebody came into my comments and posted that picture. That's what I meant. Y'all gotta think. Anyway, critical thinking is apparently lacking on a lot of you.
Something I can absolutely agree with her on. Critical thinking is lacking in some people. Now, if we had have just left it there, it's like, oh, okay, she wanted to do something for clout. She wanted to maybe make some money. These posts went clucking viral for her. She would have made money on these, which I'm just going to hold my thought because then I found this post.
Eugenia Cooney's local people are now coming in my comments. They are saying I live local to her and there were a ton of cars there the morning after the ambulances came. That's all I know. I don't know about you, but that sounds like somebody did pass away to me.
Still spreading unverifiable information. So my reaction, the visceral reaction that I was describing, was just totally appalled and totally disgusted by this information being delivered in this way at this time. Somebody came into her chat and told her that there were a ton of cars. Oh, well, it must be true then. Now, does this woman really believe this? Is she really running with this and this is just her reality? Maybe. Is she just rage baiting? I think that might be likely. I do. Yeah, people come in. If you go and look, oh, probably don't, there's too many, but there are comments in my Eugenia video that went viral, the one on the Mother's Day incident. And there are people in there claiming to be nurses that saw her in a hospital. And it's just that there's so many people out there that it actually reminds me of a quote from Fight Club. If you could be either God's worst enemy or nothing, which would you choose? And unfortunately, I think when it comes to these kinds of creators, they would rather be putting things out there for the wrong reason or putting out the wrong information or just to stir up people to be something over nothing. So here's where I wanted to have my little rant. So here's where I started thinking about things. Because when I saw this woman's posts saying the things that she was saying with such conviction and such confidence, I had such a visceral reaction of just pure rage. My feathers were fully ruffled by this woman. And I will say that it's not common that I have that response. It's usually something reserved for when there is mistreatment of animals going on. So I sat back and I wanted to analyze this because that's what I do. I thought, why? Why is this creating such a reaction within me? I think what it comes down to, let's say she and I are both content creators. We are both reacting or commentary channels in a sense. And within the commentary space, if you can imagine a spectrum of moral or ethical lines, and it's kind of like sometimes people are willing to make fun of people, sometimes they're not. Sometimes people are willing to make up information, sometimes they want to only do fact. Sometimes people want to just report on exactly what's happening. Sometimes people want to put their own experiences in. Sometimes people want to build people up, sometimes they don't. And so there's all of these combinations that a creator can land on this spectrum of what they deem as morally okay. And I think the reason that I was getting such a reaction to this woman is because she is actually crossing a handful of my moral lines. So she is enacting something that I personally hold to be the wrong behavior. Now, note what I just said there. I personally hold to be. So my moral lines, I don't have a right to put on anybody else. Just because I've defined quite simply, actually, my kind of rules of conduct that I've created for myself are I need to be able to sleep at night and know that I have not lost any of my integrity in things that I say. And I don't say anything that I wouldn't say to the individual's face. So when I'm making my videos, I kind of keep in the forefront of my mind that the person that I'm speaking about may watch my videos. I'm not saying they will, I'm not saying I expect them to, but I keep that in my mind so that it keeps me grounded in my code of ethics. I also am really careful with what I claim as fact and what I claim as perspective or speculation. And a great deal of my channel is surrounding my perspective because I've had such a unique history in my upbringing that I'm able to see things from a different angle that fortunately, very fortunately for other people, they may not be able to see or represent a perspective of a small demographic that may feel a little left behind in representation. And if you'll note, like, for example, the deep dive on the physiology of Eugenia's condition that I did, I actually started at the beginning saying, please fact check me before you go repeating any of this information because I'm human and I can make mistakes. And although when I'm delivering fact, I really do my best to be able to make sure that I've checked everything that I'm delivering, I want everybody to do their own research because I am not the beacon of all knowledge of all time. And so when I see somebody delivering such factually inaccurate or unverifiable information with such confidence, and then hearing that some of my nuggets are coming into my comment section that they've believed it, that's concerning to me. And I really encourage everybody to really closely look at the sources that they're getting their information from and just spend a little bit of time, if you're interested, before you repeat the information in checking, is there any valid information that I can glean from this? So my point being, after that lengthy ramble, I don't agree with this woman's stance. I don't personally think that she is on the right side of ethics. Now, clearly, since she's doing it, she's fine with what she's doing, and that's great. You know, she can stay over there doing that. I'll stay over here doing this. But there are people that even think that my place on the spectrum is unethical. So it is all just this larger spectrum that we need to take into account. And I will actually give you a little example. So when I first started this channel, I had a pretty good idea about who I was and what I wanted to deliver. And I had been watching commentary channels for a very long time before starting this channel. And in particular, I would watch a lot of Oh Lordy It's Geordie, a lot of Mr. Snowflake, and a lot of Salty Crab. And if you are familiar with particularly Geordie and Mr. Snowflake, you'll know that they get quite a bit sassier than I do in regards particularly to Anne Boleyn, not so much Eugenia. And I was kind of trying to find my voice and taking inspiration from people that had walked before me. And there is a video that exists on my channel that I was channeling Geordie a little bit, probably too much for my ethical line. I don't have a problem with him doing it, but it's different with what I personally do. And I don't think that I would say that I was wrong in what I was delivering, but the way it was delivered is not, it doesn't sit with me very well. Now, I've left this video up because I think it's important to not cleanse history, so to speak. I think it's important to see where your mistakes are and where you can improve and be able to witness your own growth as a human being. So it is still there, but it does not represent who I want to be ethically. I've probably made it sound way worse than it is. It's just not me. If you find it, you just see it's not my flavor. And it is so important to find those ethical lines. It really is. And the reality is you probably don't find them until you actually cross them. And then maybe you've said something to someone or you've done an action and then you go, oh, Yeah, no, that wasn't good. That was really not good. And then oh, you found that line. A real life example of where I found one of my lines was I was working in sales in a travel agent. I have worked in sales for most of my adult life. It's where I learned a lot about myself, a great deal actually. And I won't name this travel agency, but if you are an Aussie, you probably know it. You are probably thinking of it. They had performance indicators that were so high and so hard to reach that you really couldn't do it ethically. And what they would encourage everybody to do was to, whenever you sold something, you would mark it up a bit. So somebody bought a flight, you'd mark it up, say $100. Then somebody bought a hotel and you'd mark it up another $50. And, so every little leg of their journey was marked up in some way. And I really didn't feel good about doing that. I felt like that was akin to stealing. I thought it was dishonest. I think if these people had have gone online, they would have been looked after much better. And so I flat out just refused to do that anymore because I couldn't, that's not within my nature. I don't think it's honest and I wasn't comfortable with that. And when I stopped doing it, I couldn't hit my targets anymore. It was just that. And they basically pushed me out of the company. I could not survive in that environment. But it's not until we do these things and experience these things sometimes that we know exactly where our lines are. And sometimes they can surprise you, but it is important to pay attention to them when you find them. My conclusion of my own reflection of my reaction to this particular creator is that her own ethical and moral lines are none of my business, and I am not to impose mine on her, nor is she to impose hers on mine, and that goes for everybody in the world. So, does Eugenia have a role to play in this? Yes, she absolutely does. She has now, at the time of recording, been AWOL for 16 days. My gut feeling does say that it has a lot to do with the demonetization on TikTok, just based on historical actions that we've got. She tends to do this. Is it possible that something horrible has happened? Of course it is. And of course, we all have reason to think that that may be true. And that's probably why these sorts of things get so much traction, is because of how plausible they are and how we're all kind of just sitting here hoping that she eventually comes back. Now, it could also be that it is about the grieving, or it could be a combination of the both. But what I will say about Eugenia in this is, if she is okay, and if she does intend to make a return back to the internet as though nothing had happened, this behavior is not okay. This is not an okay thing to put your viewers through, to put your loyal followers through that have put a lot of money into your bank account, the people that you say you care about and that they matter so much to you. This is not an okay way to treat them. I've said it once, I'll say it again. We don't need huge amounts of information. We really don't. But just hey, I'm okay. This is all rumors. I'm not unalived. That's all it would take. All of her videos start to spike when she goes missing like this. And the longer she's missing, the more they start to spike as people start to realize what's happening. And I am concerned that that is where her motivation lies. And I hope I'm wrong about that. And I hope that these rumors are wrong. And I don't know. I'm an eternal optimist. What can I say? But if you're still here listening to this, thank you so much. I appreciate you. There is a Gypsy Rose video coming. I promise. I'm trying to get to it. Things keep happening. So I am at the point of recording for the third time. It's a long story. I'll cover that in the video. But stay tuned. Watch this space. And that is all the clucks I have left to give today. Stay golden, my little nuggets, and I'll catch you next time.
Hey, 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 hey! I'm gonna go watch another video. Let's go!